Okay, everyone, we're back and we're ready for the last match of this evening. I say the last match, but there might be some bonus matches after this. Who knows? We have Tom here who brought a deck, and I have a little brew of my own that might get a little testing as well. So we'll see. Right now, we have the final of this invitational that in the future will have a more clear framework around it and will feed into the buy system for the finals. Like I mentioned before, there will be an article probably after the final in September 17th to explain more about what I'm planning to do with this. Um, for the chat, let me just interrupt you already. It will not be Blue Red Eldrazi. Frederick actually switched over to Blue White Tempo, the deck he played against in the previous round, and Tim is still on his Green Red Landfall deck that swept through last week. So let's see what these players have for us. Again, we have a bit of a diverse matchup. It's a bit unfortunate that we didn't get to see a blue-black control deck yet, or another more controlling build, because that's also part of the meta game, and actually a very interesting one, because so much of the format is directed at being able to control aggro matchups that players have a lot of dead cards in a control matchup. Uh, and of course, those decks pry on that advantage going to the late game, filling your hand with dead cards, and in some occasions just winning game one, and then just not being able to finish game two to get their match win. Yep, and we're on our way. Both players are ready, presenting their decks, and let's see what the opening seven is. Both players want to get onto the board quickly here, and I think the late game advantage is even pretty hard to say because Tim's green red landfall can actually set up a board that gets advantage of multiple lands coming into play with multiple cards that trigger off that, where Friedrich um, can bank on a lot of control elements that postpone this super late game with bounce and control with reflector mages. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops. Friedrich gets to start. Yeah, Friedrich gets to start. Ah, okay. And I think he kept his opening 7 while Tim is going into his first mulligan hand of, yeah, 6 cards. So if anyone is new in the channel, welcome. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. This isn't your regular old standard or any constructed event. We are playing our very own constructed format that is a budget version of standard, limiting the number of uncommons and rares you're allowed to play to provide a affordable and interesting metagame and a deck building challenge that has already been proven to be quite entertaining for both new players and experienced tournament grinders. So, Tim pondering on his opening hand. It doesn't look very promising. I only see one land in there. And I think he kept his 6. Maybe there's A land that went by a bit too fast for me to see. Card goes to the bottom, guess it wasn't the land, and we're on our way. Frederick getting on the board on turn 1 with a Throben Inspector that really should have been called Throben Investigator. That's the land I saw in Tim's hand. Frederick very impressed by the unlimited land that Tim has. And first blood is for Frederick with the Throben Inspector. And follows that up with a Topen Free Blade, pretty close to the perfect curve for Frederick, and something that might prove to be problematic already. Nee. Ja, ça va. Alright, a little readjustment of where the decks and the life totals are. We'll have to read upside down, but I'm sure you're all smart enough to be able to do that. And we have an Ember Eye Wolf 1/2 haste that Tim can pump for extra damage. So I'm assuming he did have the second land, but I just didn't see it. That's a Reflector Mage to clear a path. And getting the Topen Free Blade renowned. Frederick playing a very nice unhinged, unhinged? No, unglued land for himself. So him being impressed by an unlimited land. Not 61, 91 life. And a McKinley Slide Runner. No third land for Tim, it seems. No, there we go. Third land, but he's on mono red right now. The green in his deck is a bit more limited. He's only playing 6 forests, which might be pushing his luck a little bit. Now we have the Topen Free Blade Renown, the 3/3 Vigilance, and the 2/3 Reflector Mage coming in. Not afraid of the McKinley. Of course, Tim has a bunch of pump spells to make sure that the McKinley Slide Runner is a lot more lethal than it looks here. I'd actually be tempted to attack with the Inspector as well, because even the Inspector trades with at least a combat trick. But Tim chooses to take it, possibly setting up to get into a more offensive position in the next couple of turns. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of his strength comes from having multiple permanents with landfall triggers available to him, and then building up to a bigger turn with evolving wilds or blighted woodland to get multiple land drops at once. But I don't think he'll have the time to do so. Friedrich building up quite a board presence here with the Sky Spawner. He doesn't have access to the... Oh, he does have access to Tenacity as well. So more people are getting on the bandwagon that Ruud started with this Tenacity. Other than that, there's no crazy spells in here. Unsubstantiate and Horribly Awry pop out a little bit. And he has a Spell Queller as a even more interesting Essence Flux target. It's a Mana Gorger Hydra and a Surge of Adrenaline. rush of adrenaline, sorry, on the McKinley Slide Runner to get some extra damage in. Friedrich still at a very comfortable 15 points of life, so I'm pretty sure he doesn't mind getting hit for a little more. Second Reflector Mage clears the board of all defense Tim has, and here we have another Alpha Strike for 2, 5, 7, 8, 9 damage, putting Tim all the way down to 2. And Tim already scoops them up, doesn't even want to try and play the next 2 turns. I don't think there was anything he could have drawn to equalize this either. So we're going to the sideboards, and in those sideboards we have for Friedrich one True Fate Sensor, 2 Philidar Cubs, 2 Sigardian Priests, 2 Dispels, 4 Negates, 1 Spell Shrivel, 1 Pacifism, and 1 Angelic Purge. What I expect to come in is some control elements, some extra removal, and for Tim, he doesn't have a sideboard. And he already told Friedrich he doesn't have a sideboard, so eh. I guess Tim is already ecstatic that he gets to play in this final round of this tournament. But Friedrich taking it serious here and actually starts sideboarding. Keep missing which cards Friedrich is taking out. He has 5 to bring in, so 5 cards to bring in. I'd assume Dispel, 2 Dispels, 1 Spell Shrivel, 1 Pacifism, 1 Angelic Purge, but I haven't seen him actually take them. Also, kind of wondering what he wants to take out, because this deck is pretty tight already. So that was a, I think, unsubstantiate. What? Ah ja. Yeah, a little mistake there. I put the scores on backwards. Nou, zoveel om hem op te laten. Jesus. Oh, de finals. Oh, nog 9 rondes. Ik hoop toch 9 rondes. Okay, so Friedrich almost ready with sideboarding. We'll get ready to jump into game 2, and let's see if Tim can actually get to these big landfall turns to get some spectacle on this camera going. Oh, the players still chatting about their deck choices and preferences. Um, Most people have the open finals on their minds already that will take place on September 17th. So in just a week and a half, it's time for that. The final chance to play with your standard cards. That's the week before the pre-release. That's 2 weeks before they actually rotate, and a third of the pool becomes unavailable. I don't see pacifisms in his main deck. And to be honest, I don't think you should board those out. I actually assume that one of the 5 cards Frederick boarded in will be one pacifism, as it's a good answer against the Grove Rumbler and some of the other more late game threats. Okay, both players have their opening 7s. Let's hope Tim has a more interesting hand for this game. Okay, and it looks like both players are going to keep their opening 7. Tim starts off with an Evolving Wilds, and for a lot of the decks, like Friedrich's, it's the obvious play to play Evolving Wilds on turn 1 and crack it. For Tim, it's a bit dubious because the Evolving Wild represents a double landfall and is one of those ways that the green-red landfall deck can generate a very big turn in the mid to late game. So always a little bit sad to see landfall deck play their Evolving Wilds on turn 1. Unless of course you're their opponent, then you're just happy that one of them is already off the table. So, Tim going to fetch a mountain. Like I mentioned before, his deck is pretty heavy red, but I assume that means he already has a forest in his hand. There we go. And we have a McKinley Slide Runner. This red-green landfall deck actually used to be the consensus best deck in the format back when Kans was still around and we had Monastery Swift Spear and some of the better burn and pump spells. But in the meantime, it's been dethroned by this blue-white tempo and black-green aristocrats decks, which take up a sizable portion of the metagame here. Like I mentioned before, I think blue-red Rise from the Tides is definitely up there in the tier 1. And Tim attacking with a 3-2 trample on turn 2. So this is more like the way he wishes his turns develop. I'll follow up with another threat, and there we have the Valakut Predator. Gets +2/+2 whenever you put a land on the battlefield. So there we have the Tenacity. I guess he didn't board it out then. Friedrich has the Reflector Mage, both to kill tempo and get some for his own. The trade-off in actual damage from it is pretty low here. He only has 1 damage to squeeze through. Usually when you play the Reflector Mage you hope to actually at least get a sizable attack in. But Friedrich actually choosing to keep it back here, probably to get an extra power on the table, because a lot of the pump spells that Tim is playing only give 1 extra toughness. Actually, there was no copy of Red-Green Landfall, because by the time the finals rolled around, we had Prowess, Blue-Red Prowess, as the new deck to beat already, and I think it's Blue-Red Prowess that actually won it in the hands of Yala. So now I missed which attack. We have Brute Strength, Brute Force. What's it called again? Titan strength, brute strength, to push through some extra damage. So attacking for 6 now. Yeah, Niels played black-red tokens. Tom, what did you play in the finals last time? Esper mid-range, yeah, with Thunderclaps and Ulamog's Nullifier, yeah. So there were quite a few interesting decks in that one, but I'm curious to see what will be the top dogs in the next finals. The Esper deck was sweet. So Friedrich taking the damage from the pumped Slide Runner and attacking back for 2. Kunnen jullie de live totals ietsje hoger schuiven weer? Ja, ja. Hm? For some reason our players like to play upside down. Maybe we should have them switch sides so we can have the deck on the bottom of the screen again. Okay, so players readjusting their board to make some space. Life totals are still upside down, but I hope that's not a big problem for you guys. We have 11 to 18 on the board. And we are in Friedrich's turn, oh no, we're in Tim's turn already. After the attack with the Reflector Mage. Friedrich already forgetting it has been two turns. And the Valakut Predator is back. Tim passes the turn. Friedrich draws an extra card off the clue he still had lying around. And seems to have quite a bit of control. He has a Dispel in hand to protect himself against surprise pump spells. Attacking with only the token here, which is pretty interesting since both creatures trade with it at this point. So either offering up a trade or representing a pump spell, which I don't think he actually has. No. So straight up offering a trade here. Tim seems to prefer to have his Slide Runner, and yeah, the trade goes through. Friedrich plays a Sky Spawner, and now the Valakut Predator, which doesn't have Trample. The Slide Runner that just died did have Trample. Looks a lot worse with this Chump Blocker in play. Again, no land for Tim. A second Predator comes in though. But I think Tim is a bit pinched on red mana. While Friedrich is drawing everything he needs. The early assault by Tim, putting Friedrich to 9, has been handily stopped, And now Friedrich can get onto the offensive in the air and with the 2-3 reflector mage. As you can see, he has Gideon's reproach in his hand in case something goes wrong. Tim not even trying to do something about this and drops down to 14. Friedrich now has the option to keep his mana open to represent a slew of possibilities or filling the board even more. And it's the Whirler Rogue, the freshly drawn Whirler Rogue, that gets his preference. So, quite a sizable army on the board right now. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 powering creatures from Friedrich's blue-white tempo deck. And we're back to Tim, who is looking at a very steep uphill battle here. If only he had a blighted woodland, this turn could have still been quite impressive. But I'm afraid this is the desperation attack to signal this game is close to over. If I'm not mistaken, Friedrich is holding tenacity. Now Tim can do quite a lot of damage from this position. If he can give both of his creatures trample and pump them a little bit, it isn't impossible for him to kill Friedrich straight up here, but Gideon's Reproach and the Dispel in Tim's hand, in Friedrich's hand, are a pretty good safety net. With the Science, he can actually cast both of them, so not sure what he's so afraid of. As long as he leaves back enough creatures to kill Tim on the attack back, he's pretty safe. I don't think I would have even blocked at all here. Or maybe with one creature. If Tim has removal for one of his creatures, he still has plenty to punch through elsewhere. It's 3, 6, 10, 13, 15, 17. Yeah, if both of those creatures die, I think he only has 13 power left on the tenacity and powered attack back. That's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 plus 5. Yeah, now Friedrich is missing 1 damage to actually kill Tim. Not that there will be a lot happening after that, as Friedrich will gain 13 points of life off the coming attack as well. Chat's been pretty silent, I guess. Nobody's rooting for any of these players. Tim trying to figure out if he actually has a way to push through enough damage. He has Titan strengths, he has brute strengths, he has a rush of adrenaline, so he is quite capable of giving both creatures trample and he actually doesn't have enough red mana to go completely crazy. Maybe an something between Fran's mono red deck and this deck from Tim is something interesting to look at. Yep. So this way he kills the other predator and gets to keep his inspector. And with the inspector he'll have 15 power with the tenacity next turn. I don't think that Tem can respond with a 3 toughness boost on his Valakut predator. So Frederick explaining that it's dealing 4 damage to the predator with the brute strength on the stack. And I'm guessing this is the writing on the wall for Tim. So apparently there was a land drop. I'm guessing there was actually a land drop, so the Valakut's predator was a 4/4. Otherwise Friedrich wouldn't have even needed to respond with Dispel. And now he has exactly 15 power with the tenacity to kill Tim. Friedrich just double checking the math. Pretty sure he'll come to the same conclusion I will. 4 mana, tenacity, 15 power, no blockers, game over. And we have a handshake. Okay, so Friedrich wins this first additional of the precursor of what will eventually turn into the Invitational. Don't